image like no other, inspiring decades of research and debate. The Shroud of Turin, that's a piece of history, and it has an ongoing puzzle for science.
The Shroud of Turin is a burial cloth that's imprinted with what many believe is the actual image of Jesus after his crucifixion. Now, it's been debated for years, but the shroud is back in the headlines in a major way.
From the moment researchers uploaded images of the Shroud of Turin into artificial intelligence, they thought they were finally closing in on one of history's greatest mysteries. But what the AI uncovered was nothing like what they expected. Instead of confirming old theories, the system revealed patterns and signals so intricate, so beyond explanation, that experts now describe the results as not only surprising, but deeply unsettling, even frightening. Hidden within the fabric, the AI detected structures and radiation traces that have no place in a medieval relic. The findings challenge not just history, but the very laws of physics themselves. What artificial intelligence just uncovered in the Shroud of Turin has left scientists stunned, forcing them to rethink everything they believed about the limits of ancient technology. Inside the quiet grandeur of a cathedral in Turin, Italy, rests a linen cloth that has puzzled experts for over a century. Known as the Shroud of Turin, it measures nearly 14 feet long and just over 3 feet wide. On its surface is the faint, ghostly image of a crucified man. For generations, both believers and skeptics have argued over its origin. Could this mysterious relic truly be the burial cloth of Jesus Christ? Yet the shroud is far more than stained fabric. Woven into its very fibers are haunting details. Nail marks through the wrists, wounds resembling those from a crown of thorns, and even what appears to be a spear injury in the side. Each mark aligns with the biblical accounts of the crucifixion, leaving a puzzle that continues to defy science and ignite faith in equal measure. For over a century, scientists have poured endless effort into studying this cloth, trying to solve the riddle of how its ghostly image was formed. They have thrown every tool imaginable at it: powerful microscopes to inspect its fibers, chemical tests to hunt for pigments, X-rays to probe hidden layers, and dozens of other cutting-edge methods. And yet, after decades of investigation, the truth remains elusive. The image is astonishingly detailed, etched into the ancient linen with no sign of paint, no trace of dye, and no evidence of any known artistic technique. Today, the shroud rests in Turin, Italy, sealed inside a special case of bulletproof glass. Only a handful of people on Earth are allowed to touch it or collect samples, making every study rare, difficult, and priceless. What makes it even stranger is that the image behaves like a photographic negative. To the naked eye, it's a faint, blurred figure. But when photographed and viewed in negative, a startlingly clear face emerges. And yet, as shocking as that discovery was, the most astonishing revelation was still waiting to be uncovered. Scientists were close to uncovering something that would overshadow all their earlier findings. What they didn't expect, however, was that the breakthrough wouldn't come from traditional methods, but from artificial intelligence. The first photograph, a hidden image, emerges. In 1898, an Italian lawyer and amateur photographer named Secondo Pia made history when he captured the first ever photograph of the Shroud of Turin. What he saw in his darkroom that night stunned him, and later, the world. When the photographic plate developed, the faint, almost ghostly marks on the cloth suddenly transformed. The negative revealed a sharp, detailed face staring back at him, a portrait far clearer than what the human eye could see. News of this discovery spread rapidly across Europe. Scientists and skeptics alike rushed to witness the mystery for themselves. How could a centuries-old piece of linen behave like a photographic negative, showing hidden details invisible to the naked eye? The discovery seemed to anticipate the science of photography, hundreds of years before cameras even existed. But Pia's photographs raised more questions than they answered. If the shroud truly was Jesus' burial cloth, how had it captured such a perfect image? And if it wasn't, how could people in the Middle Ages have created something that mimicked photography so precisely? Decades of investigation. For decades, researchers examined every inch of the cloth. They learned that the image penetrates only a few micrometers into the linen fibers, thinner than a single strand of hair. There were no signs of paint, no traces of dye, and no evidence of brushstrokes. Even stranger, the bloodstains told a different story than the image itself. Scientific testing confirmed the stains were real human blood, absorbed deep into the fabric, but the body image rested only on the outer surface of the fibers, never disturbing the blood beneath. As one researcher observed, it's as if the image hovered above the cloth, careful not to touch a single drop of blood. This meant the blood had reached the linen first, and the body image appeared afterward, in a way no known process could explain. Botanical analysis added another layer of mystery. Pollen grains embedded in the cloth came from plants native to ancient Israel. The weave of the linen itself matched textiles from the same region and time period. Piece by piece, the evidence seemed to suggest the shroud could be exactly what believers had always claimed. The dating controversy. Then, in 1988, radiocarbon dating delivered a shock. Tests suggested the cloth originated not in the 1st century, but in medieval Europe, centuries after the time of Christ. Many thought this settled the matter once and for all. Instead, it ignited a firestorm. Researchers accused one another of flawed methods, sample contamination, and misinterpretation. Instead of solving the mystery, the dating only deepened the divide, sparking a scientific debate that still rages today. But what no one knew then was that artificial intelligence would soon take its turn at examining the shroud, analyzing it in ways beyond human capability. And what it would uncover would not only challenge science, but leave many describing the results as deeply unsettling. Some even called them terrifying. The Shroud of Turin Research Project. In 1978, a group of scientists came together to form the Shroud of Turin Research Project, or STURP. Their mission was bold: to carry out the first full, multidisciplinary study of the mysterious cloth. Among them was a chemist who, even years later, couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He had spent countless hours examining the fibers under high-powered microscopes, and what he saw didn't line up with the carbon dating results that much of the world had accepted. Every thread seemed to tell a different story, he later admitted, capturing the unease shared by many researchers. Finally, he took a step that shocked the scientific community. He retested the very corner of the shroud that had been used in the 1988 dating study. What he found was unsettling. The corner sample contained cotton fibers woven in with the linen, and its chemical makeup was different from the rest of the cloth. Under the microscope, it became clear. The corner had been repaired at some point in history with newer material. This meant that the carbon dating test may not have measured the original cloth at all, but only a medieval patch. The revelation split the scientific world. Some insisted the 1988 dating was final and that no new evidence could overturn it. Others pointed to the growing number of inconsistencies. If the shroud really was a medieval forgery, then why couldn't modern science reproduce it? Researchers tried everything: painting, stamping, scorching with heat, even high-energy lasers. None of it could recreate the shroud's unique qualities, an image that rests only on the very top of the fibers, so shallow and precise it defies explanation. That left scientists with two unsettling possibilities. Either the carbon dating was wrong, or the shroud was the most advanced forgery in human history, created with techniques that even today's technology couldn't match. Instead of solving the riddle, every new test only made the mystery deeper. It became clear that traditional methods had reached their limits. To push further, researchers would need new tools, new approaches, and entirely new ways of thinking. What they didn't yet know was that the breakthrough would come from artificial intelligence, and what the machines would uncover in the shroud's fibers would be more shocking than anything discovered so far. Machines that see the invisible. By the 2020s, artificial intelligence had advanced to the point where it could detect patterns invisible to the human eye. Hoping to unlock the shroud's final secrets, scientists fed high-resolution images of the cloth into powerful AI systems, asking the machines to see what decades of human study had missed. The AI began its work using a technique called principal component analysis, a method that strips away all the noise in an image, leaving behind only the most essential information. When it applied this process to the shroud, something extraordinary happened. the system discovered that 98.4% of all the information in the image was contained in just one component: the intensity of light and dark. That alone was shocking. In normal photographs or paintings, information is spread out across multiple components. The shroud, however, was different, radically different, and this was only the beginning. When the AI studied how the light and dark regions were arranged, it made a discovery that made researchers' hearts pound. The pattern wasn't random, as you would expect from paint, pigments, or stains. Instead, every line and shadow seemed purposeful, as though guided by an unseen design. The AI revealed a mathematical rule at work. Darker areas of the image perfectly matched spots where a body would have been closer to the cloth, while lighter areas corresponded to places farther away. In effect, the linen had recorded distance information, as though it somehow measured the space between itself and a human body, then translated that into an image. This stunned researchers. No human artist could achieve such flawless precision. Even the most gifted painter would leave behind tiny irregularities, imperfections that AI analysis would quickly expose. But the shroud's image followed this distance rule with absolute perfection across the entire surface. To test whether this could be a coincidence, the AI analyzed thousands of other images, paintings, photographs, even images intentionally designed to mimic the shroud. None of them showed the same exact mathematical relationship between brightness and distance. What made the finding even more unsettling was that the same pattern appeared not only in visible light, but also in ultraviolet photographs of the shroud. It's as if the image was coded to exist in every kind of light, one researcher remarked, still astonished. For a medieval artist, such a feat would have been not just difficult, but utterly impossible. It became clear that the shroud was unlike anything known to science or art. This was no painting, no ordinary imprint, not even an early form of photography. What the AI uncovered was evidence of a three-dimensional recording system, one that encoded spatial information into light and shadow with impossible accuracy. But the question that haunted scientists was simple and terrifying. How could such a thing exist in the ancient world? And what kind of force could create such a flawless mathematical pattern? The AI had opened a door to an even deeper mystery, one that would soon uncover the most astonishing truth about the Shroud of Turin. Three-dimensional information that defies logic. Years before artificial intelligence ever touched the shroud, scientists had already stumbled upon something extraordinary. Using a device called the VP-8 Image Analyzer, a machine originally developed by NASA to generate 3D maps of the moon's surface, they tested a simple photograph of the cloth. What happened next left them speechless. The faint, ghostly image on the linen suddenly transformed into a perfect, three-dimensional model of a human body. There was no distortion, no stretching, no strange angles, just the natural shape of a person lying in repose. This was something no ordinary photograph or painting had ever produced. When typical images were put through the VP-8 analyzer, the results came out warped, grotesque, and unrecognizable. But the shroud was different. Its image alone produced a flawless 3D reconstruction. Scientists ran the test again and again. They tried photographs of statues, portraits, even images crafted specifically to trick the machine. The results were always the same. Nothing but the shroud created a true-to-life 3D image. It's as if the cloth itself is speaking in a language no one has ever seen, one researcher remarked, struggling to capture the strangeness of it all. The way the shroud seemed to encode three-dimensional information as if it had been designed for this very purpose. AI confirms the impossible. Decades after the first discoveries, artificial intelligence took the mystery of the shroud even further. The AI confirmed what earlier researchers had glimpsed. Every single pixel on the cloth carried information about depth and distance. The shroud wasn't just a flat picture, it was a mathematical map of three-dimensional space. But what came next left scientists truly unsettled. To create this kind of encoding requires an advanced understanding of mathematics and optics, knowledge of how light behaves, how distance changes brightness, and how to translate all of that into an image on fabric. That kind of expertise didn't exist in ancient times, and even in the Middle Ages, it was virtually unknown. In fact, Producing something like this today would demand complex computer programs and state-of-the-art instruments. The AI also found that the 3D information was encoded on a microscopic level. Each fiber of the linen carried a fragment of the distance data, and when combined across the cloth, they formed a complete three-dimensional record. It was as if every thread was a pixel in an enormous ancient computer display. But what process could achieve this, altering individual fibers according to their distance from a body, without leaving behind any paint, dye, or pigment? Scientists were forced to face a chilling possibility. Either people in the distant past had access to technology far more advanced than history allows, or something else had created the image, something that understood mathematics and physics at a level that felt almost otherworldly. AI cracks an ancient code. When AI dug deeper into the shroud's image, it began uncovering patterns no human eye had ever noticed. The machine wasn't searching for religious meaning or trying to prove a theory. It was simply analyzing raw data. And yet, what it revealed stunned researchers. The image contained precise, repeating mathematical ratios. These weren't random alignments, but deliberate geometric relationships appearing in the face, the hands, and the body itself, as though the image had been built upon a sophisticated mathematical formula. Even more astonishing, the AI discovered that these ratios remained consistent when the shroud was analyzed under different kinds of light. It was becoming clear, the shroud wasn't just an image, it was a code, an artifact that seemed to speak in the language of mathematics itself. No matter how the shroud was examined, whether under visible light, ultraviolet, or even infrared photography, the same mathematical relationships appeared again and again. This meant the encoding wasn't just surface coloring, it was woven into the very structure of the cloth itself. Then the AI uncovered something that sent a chill through the research team. Hidden deep within the faint image were symmetries and patterns that seemed to anticipate future discoveries. It's almost as if the shroud knew we'd one day have the tools to see it, one scientist whispered, stunned at how the cloth seemed to reveal more the further technology advanced. To test this, researchers ran control experiments. They fed the A1 images of medieval art, modern photographs, and even computer-generated forgeries made to resemble the shroud. None of them contained the same mathematical encoding. The shroud stood alone. But perhaps the most unsettling discovery came when the AI compared the bloodstains to the body image. It found they had been formed by two entirely separate processes. The blood had soaked naturally into the linen, consistent with real wounds, while the body image appeared later, carefully forming around the blood without disturbing it. This meant two events had occurred. First, real blood stained the cloth in patterns identical to the wounds of crucifixion described in the Bible. Then, at a later moment, some unknown process imprinted the body image, without altering the blood. The AI calculated the odds of this happening by chance, and the result was staggering. Either this detail had been deliberately engineered with impossible precision, or the shroud had captured the record of an actual event. When the findings were published, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Some hailed it as undeniable evidence of a miracle. Others clung to the belief that a natural explanation must exist. But no matter the interpretation, one fact was clear. The shroud was far stranger than anyone had ever imagined. It wasn't just an ancient relic or a medieval fake. It was a kind of recording device, storing information in ways modern science was only beginning to grasp. The radiation theory. As AI dug deeper, scientists began revisiting one theory that could explain the baffling evidence. Radiation. Not the deadly kind from nuclear blasts, but a brief, intense burst of energy powerful enough to alter linen at the molecular level. The idea wasn't entirely new, but now the AI was uncovering patterns that made the radiation hypothesis impossible to ignore. The precise mathematical ratios, the three-dimensional encoding, the surface-level coloration, all pointed toward some kind of short, controlled burst of energy. Researchers began experimenting with how different types of radiation interacted with cloth. They found that certain forms of energy could subtly change the chemistry of linen fibers without burning or destroying them. If the energy was of just the right type and intensity, it could produce the very kind of delicate surface image found on the shroud. But here was the most terrifying implication. The radiation couldn't have come from outside the cloth. For the image to form as it did, the energy would have had to burst outward from inside the fabric, precisely where a body would have lain, projecting in every direction to imprint the image as it passed through the linen. To test the radiation theory, scientists set up controlled lab experiments. They wrapped cloth around various objects and exposed them to different types of radiation. Some of the tests produced images that looked faintly similar to parts of the shroud, but none of them came close to recreating the flawless three-dimensional encoding that AI had uncovered. The problem was energy. The kind of burst needed would have been enormous, like a gigantic camera flash, but made of invisible radiation instead of light, and it wouldn't have lasted long, just a few millionths of a second. But in that instant, it would have altered every single fiber it touched with extreme precision, depending on how far each fiber was from the energy source. What could possibly create such a burst? Scientists considered several possibilities, but none fully fit. A corona discharge could make superficial marks, but nowhere near the mathematical perfection the AI detected. Ultraviolet light could affect linen, but it penetrated too deeply. Heat could leave an impression, but it always burned or distorted the fabric. In the end, the most honest conclusion was unsettling. Science doesn't yet know what kind of energy could do this. Whatever it was, it would have to be both incredibly powerful and impossibly precise, something not found in any current physics textbook. This led to a staggering thought. If the shroud truly recorded a radiation event, then something happened inside that tomb that science cannot explain. Either ancient people had access to energy sources beyond our imagination, or an event occurred that modern physics has never witnessed. I had cracked the code, but the answer it revealed was even more mysterious than the original question. The scientific community reacts. When the AI results spread through the scientific world, the response was explosive. Scholars who had studied the shroud for decades suddenly found themselves staring at evidence that defied their most basic assumptions about how ancient images could form. The AI revealed patterns so precise, they demanded an explanation, yet no known natural process could produce them. Scientists worldwide tried to replicate the shroud's unique properties using lasers, plasma, electrical discharges, chemicals, and various forms of radiation, but nothing came close. Its combination of surface markings, three-dimensional encoding, and multispectral consistency exceeded any technology, past or present. Researchers were forced to confront a startling truth. The shroud recorded a natural phenomenon far beyond current scientific understanding. Some speculated quantum effects or unknown electromagnetic forces might be involved, but every answer raised more questions. The AI had uncovered mathematical order where chaos should exist, precision beyond medieval capability, and information encoded at the molecular level. After months of analysis, the AI delivered its verdict. The shroud contained multiple layers of information, all formed simultaneously by a single, precisely controlled energy event. The radiation hypothesis wasn't just plausible, it was the only explanation that fit the evidence. The energy burst that created the image encoded three-dimensional detail into the linen fibers while affecting only their outermost molecular layers, something modern science can measure but cannot reproduce. The shroud was no longer just a relic. According to AI, it recorded a real physical event that obeyed natural laws yet stretched them to the absolute limit. The machine couldn't explain what triggered the energy burst or why it occurred, but it proved beyond any doubt that it did happen. Scientists realized they were looking at evidence of something that took place nearly 2,000 years ago, yet exhibited a level of technological precision humanity has not yet achieved. The radiation patterns encoded in the shroud reflected a mastery of energy and matter that made even our most advanced laboratories seem rudimentary. The terrifying truth the AI uncovered wasn't supernatural, it was natural, but utterly extraordinary. The machine had revealed the fingerprints of a phenomenon operating according to physical laws, yet surpassing our current understanding of what those laws allow. This ancient cloth had become a message written in radiation, encoded in mathematics, patiently waiting for artificial intelligence to finally decipher its impossible code. What do you make of AI's discovery of these radiation patterns and mathematical encodings in the shroud? Could this be evidence of a previously unknown natural phenomenon, or is there another explanation? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.